That one was for all my ASMR homies out there. Can't beat that. So we all want better cinematic footage. And believe it or not, it doesn't take a nice expensive camera or expensive gear. It doesn't even matter how good of an editor you are. What if I told you that you have access to shooting better cinematic footage and it's actually free? In this video, I'm going to show you how by using camera movement, we can all make better, more cinematic videos. Now, when it comes to making your footage more cinematic, I think camera movement is such a big part in giving it that distinct look that you might be going for. Now, all of the sequence that you just saw, I shot that actually all handheld. Now, of course, you can accomplish all of that movement, all of those different camera moves using a gimbal or a stabilizer or a slider or some other piece of equipment, but I realize that not everybody has access to that, so I wanted to shoot it handheld. Now, I have a few different methods, a few different camera moves that I use that I'm consciously thinking about every time that I go out to shoot. And I think at the end of the day, when I'm able to implement one or multiple of those moves into whatever video or project that I'm working on, I've always found that it just makes my footage, it makes my sequence that much more interesting. So I want to go over those three moves with you, starting with the first one, which I call the push in or the pull out method. This is a pretty basic move, but when done right, it can really provide a lot of interest to the viewer. So basically what it is that you start on your subject, whether that's a person or a building or whatever your subject is that you're filming, you start locked in on that subject, but instead of staying static in that position, you're actually slowly and subtly moving in to your subject or pulling away from the subject, revealing more of the background, more of the scene, or maybe even more of what's in the foreground of that shot. The second move that I like to do is called the reveal shot. Now, I'm sure you've seen this many times on YouTube or movies or other videos that you might have seen. And basically what this is that you're revealing your subject. So you're not starting on your subject, you're starting on something else and then slowly revealing whatever it is that you're trying to show. This creates a little bit of mystery, it creates a little bit of tension for the viewer. And when done right, I think this is a really nice shot that offers the audience some kind of payoff for waiting to see what it's all about. Now, the third movement that I usually try to implement, I don't really have a name for it necessarily, but basically my thought process, my method behind it is having my subject, but also having something in the foreground framing my subject and then slowly either panning to the left or to the right. What this does is, of course, it frames your shot, it frames the subject, and it also creates depth within your shot. And when you have depth and you have a subject and you have camera movement all together, all at one time, this is gonna create a really cinematic shot that I think is gonna emulate, a ton of movies or TV shows or things that whatever you consider to be cinematic. I think you're gonna see this shot performed a lot of times by a lot of talented people. And I think the more creative that you can get with this type of shot is all the better. Now, of course, there are many more than just 3 camera moves that you can do. I wanted to give you some basic ones, some easy ones to get you started, to get your mind kind of thinking about what you can do to start implementing camera moves to your videos. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but I did want to say that hopefully that your goal when doing these camera moves is to keep your camera, to keep your footage as stable and still as possible. We all have seen those videos that probably give us some kind of anxiety where the entire thing is just really shaky and they're trying to get smooth movements, but it's not smooth, and it's not very appealing to the eye. With that being said, shaky footage can be used for an effect. Here, I'll show you real quick. You don't always have to have your camera stabilized and perfectly smooth. Sometimes this creates an artistic effect that is quite enjoyable if done at the right time and in the right place. But more often than not, you're gonna wanna keep your footage really smooth, keeping it as dolly-like as you possibly can, because ultimately, in Hollywood, in the movies, that's what they're using. They're keeping their footage smooth and stable. And so if we're trying to emulate that cinematic type of video, that cinematic type of footage, we're gonna wanna keep our footage stable. So anyways, that's all I have for you today. If this video is helpful, make sure to hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, I would definitely encourage you to consider doing so. I post videos just like this all the time, talking about filmmaking, photography, even sometimes tutorials and travel films. So make sure to subscribe. That way you don't miss anything, and I would just love to have you on board as well. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.